Welcome to this post-landing news conference for Space Shuttle Endeavour's STS-127 mission to the International Space Station. We have 5 briefers here today at NASA's Kennedy Space Center who will talk us through this mission. First up, we have Bill Gerstenmaier, NASA Associate Administrator for Space Operations. Next, we have Keiki Tashikawa, the President of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. To his left, Benoit Marcotte, Director General, Operations for the Canadian Space Agency. Next, we have Mike Moses, NASA Space Shuttle Launch Integration Manager. And finally, we have Pete Nicolenko, the STS-127 Launch Director. We'll start off with opening comments and then take questions. Mr. Gerstenmaier.
Thank you, Allard. I can't say enough how great this mission was. You know, I talked to you before the mission about how difficult this mission would be with the EVAs, the 5 EVAs, and the robotic activities, but the crew and the ground teams pulled it all together, and they just did a phenomenal job, and we've got everything accomplished on board Space Station that we needed to with this mission. And then to cap it off with a wonderful landing like today was just phenomenal. And the teams that have worked through this mission and worked through the problems that occurred on orbit just did a phenomenal job. The planning was outstanding. The work was excellent. The vehicle performed extremely well, and that's a tribute to the KSC team here that got that vehicle ready to go fly. When we looked at it on the runway, it looked just like it did on orbit. We didn't see anything that looked surprising to us in terms of any of the damage or anything. It all fared very well. That all fits with our experience space, and it all looks really good. So again, I look forward to your questions, but what an amazing flight this was. What an amazing team accomplishment this was. This was a truly phenomenal mission. Thank you. Dr. Tashikawa?
Okay. Today, Space Shuttle Endeavour landed safely at NASA Kennedy Space Center after a 17-day mission. I feel great pleasure in announcing its success and safe return. We are proud to have finished the assembly of Kibo successfully, having the exposed facility attached to the pressurized module, and to have astronaut Koichi Wakata, who based on his hard training and his previous experience, has completed his duty of assembling the ISS during the STS-127 shuttle mission. Completing the assembly of all Kibo elements makes possible various experiments that use the ability of Kibo, and is extremely important to our country. In addition, gaining valuable knowledge and experience from astronaut Wakata, the first Japanese member of a long-duration mission crew aboard the ISS, will advance our country's future manned space activities. I sincerely appreciate the support and cooperation from not only Japanese people and the related organizations, but also NASA and other international partners who have been working with us in launching the final elements of Kibo and on the mission for astronaut Wakata. JAXA must now make the best use of this valuable experience for the operation of Kibo, for accomplishing the transportation of cargo by H-2A vehicle HTV, for the long-duration mission of astronaut Noguchi, and for Japanese manned space activity plan and the use of manned space. I wish for your support and our mutual collaboration to continue into the future. Thank you.
First, let me congratulate our NASA colleagues for indeed an impressive mission. Bill has talked about it earlier. This was, a thorough success of planning and conduct by teams all around the world that were planning this mission, and an impressive conduct by the crew on orbit, the STS-127 crew, the ISS crew, and also the supporting team on the ground. It was truly an impressive demonstration of international collaboration all throughout this mission. I want also to congratulate JAXA for the completion of the Kibo laboratory. It was truly impressive during the fly around a few days ago to watch that facility, that exposed facility, added to the laboratory that is the International Space Station. And as we were discussing last week with the Multilateral Coordination Board, we were talking more about utilization of ISS, and every nation, is thinking more and more about how we will optimize the use of it. So, it was a great addition, and congratulations. It's also, we were proud as Canadians to see this mission go so well. The robotics were formidable during this operation or this mission. And also to have Julie Payette on board was a blessing for us, noting that Julie was flying the 15th Canadian space flight for a Canadian astronaut in over 25 years. And for her to join Bob Thirsk, who's already on orbit, we celebrated that quite a bit in Canada because it's an impressive record for us, a new first, I guess, for our nation. And it's impressive for our astronaut cadre to be part of this journey on the International Space Station and learn to live in space, learn to assemble systems that work in space. And again, I was astonished yesterday to watch Bob Thirsk work on the system on board of the ISS in order to learn how to continue to maintain those systems and those systems that we will need for exploration in the future. So it was an important mission for us, and it continues to be, and we're looking forward to continuing the use of the ISS and towards exploration. So in closing, my president, Steve McLean, who unfortunately was in the Arctic this week and could not be here for the landing, he's asked me to express his warmest congratulations to the crew of Mark Polanski and the STS-127 crew for a job extremely well done. And welcome back to Earth for that crew, and especially to Koichi, who spent 4 months on orbit, and also to Julie, who has represented Canada extremely well. En français, je veux simplement dire un bon retour à Julie sur Terre. Toute l'Agence spatiale canadienne et l'ensemble des Canadiens et des Canadiennes sont fiers du travail qu'elle a effectué avec son équipage en orbite. Il nous fera un grand plaisir de l'accueillir à Montréal et d'écouter ses récits de sa mission, qui a été une mission extraordinaire. Merci.
Let's see, I don't have much else to add. You kind of have heard from the board up here that this was a very complicated mission. It went off very well, and that really is an attribute to all the pre-flight planning that went in, both on the ground to have all the plans ready to go and the integrated flow to get the vehicle out to the launch pad and launched, and then on orbit. With the challenges that we faced, they weren't all that great, but they, in and of themselves, each was a road bump, basically a speed bump on the road, and the fact that the flight control team back in Houston overcame those so easily, and the crew on orbit really did make it look easy. It's definitely not easy, but they sure make it look that way. The only thing I was going to say is I was reminded listening to our colleagues from JAXA and CSA talking about how this was a great example of partnership. We're about to see that again in just a few months when HTV launches, and the space station arm, the SSRMS, will be used to grapple and berth that to the station. So there's another good example of international cooperation in space. We're really looking forward to seeing that as well. So with that, I'll let Pete say a few words.
Well, first off, I'd like to, again, congratulate all of the teams, both on the ground and certainly the on-orbit crews for an immensely successful mission. As opposed to the weather challenges that faced us in our multiple launch attempts, I'm thankful that the weather did cooperate on the first landing attempt here today, and it was a wonderful and spectacular landing, and all the crews and the turnarounds going wonderfully. As many of you know, right on the heels of this mission, we're already processing, preparing STS-128 and Discovery for currently in the vehicle assembly building, and preparing that vehicle for rollout to the pad early this next week for a late August launch. And that one is going to be a tight processing flow for us, but it's certainly all within our experience base, and looking forward to getting the next mission processed and ready for launch. Thank you.
Okay, we'll now open it up to questions. When I call on you, please wait for the microphone, state your name, news affiliation, and who you'd like to answer your question. We'll start with the front row because it's easy. Pat?
Thank you. Pat Duggins, National Public Radio and WMFE for Bill. On the subject of Discovery, could you kind of, in 10 words or less, kind of explain to us exactly where this particular mission fits into the big picture on ISS?
Yeah. The Discovery mission, the one that's coming up?
Yes, sir.
I think it The key aspect of it is it's going to have the multi-purpose logistics module on that mission, and the purpose there is to essentially outfit more of the research facilities on board space station, as well as transfer critical crew supplies and hardware to space station. So it's kind of the continuing piece. It doesn't have all the robotic activities like the mission we just accomplished. It has but more of kind of a utilization kind of feel, where we're really now setting up the research, internal research capabilities to get ready to outfit the laboratory. So the laboratory shells are up there, but now you could think of it as the research racks being delivered, as well as the critical supplies that are needed for to maintain the space station as a research facility.
Marcia?
Marcia Dunn, Associated Press for the Japanese Space Agency representative. Did you have a chance to speak or meet with Mr. Wakata? And did you have a gift or a present for him? I'm not familiar with Japanese custom for welcoming someone back from a long journey, so maybe you could share that with us too.
Yes, I met Dr. Wakata just 1 hour before, after returning to the Earth. So he was very healthy, and even he can walk. So I was very surprised to look at him. But so we met Dr. Wakata just on the board of the car. So he cannot come, so get down. But I talked with him, and he was very healthy, and he really completed his duty and his mission, so he was very happy. So, and I talked with by telephone after that, so he said he did his best. Okay, so we welcome him like Japanese. We don't have any special issue. Yes. So, but maybe 2 months later, we'll meet him in Japan. So at that time, we would like to accommodate him to be happy, yes.
And Marcia, we can confirm that he actually did get to have sushi as he requested when he got back to crew quarters. He did, yes. Yeah. He did, yep. All right, next question.
Bill Harwood with CBS for two STS-128 questions. I guess one for Mike and one for Bill Gerstenmaier. For Mike, can you give us a little status on the additional plug pull test and when you think you can roll out? And for Mr. Gerstenmaier, sorry, do you have to have root cause, you think, at the executive FRR to clear to fly, or are you good enough if you can show that the ET-132 is okay to fly? I mean, I'm just wondering what you got to have for flight rationale to clear it to go. Thanks.
We'll see on the status of that tank, ET-132. You know, we kind of have been going about this as we learn more data. We've been doing more. So we started with a set of 20 plug pulls. That was our original plan. And then right before we got started, they added 6 more that were kind of vectored in on some of the findings that the team did in the way we spray that tank down at Michoud. They found a few other spots that would be good to check. So we get 26. And that kind of cleared. That was all around the tank. That kind of cleared the tank from a generic problem that was a problem with the spray or with contamination. Then on the back side of the tank, we picked a particular panel and we pulled 126 times to look for more of a random distribution of contamination, and those all came back just fine, no problems there. We were just about to wrap all that up. We had a review, and the team that was doing their investigation at Michoud found basically some other areas that if you were doing the cleaning process, you might have, you could extrapolate could have been missed. That's not saying that they do. They have quality inspectors. They know how to clean this area, but it's a harder to reach spot than some of the other spots on the tank, and it's basically where their work platforms are. The 125 pools covered, I think, 3 of the 4 platforms, so we were already pulling in that area. There was one little spot where we hadn't got, so that's what these additional 18 were for. We're going to actually get that work here done this afternoon. I think the platforms are all set up and they'll be ready to go. And then we're just going to kind of have to wait and see the repair of that, the cure. On the paper right now, it looks like we'd be able to still roll on Monday, but it's starting to get kind of late on Monday that now I'll be handing Pete a pretty good challenge for weather to get out to the pad. So we're going to let them take a look at it and see, and basically wait until we know we're rolling out of the VAB before we kind of target that launch date. You guys taught me last time not to name names, right? So we're going to launch sometime at the end of August, and I'm not going to be more specific. But we're looking good for Monday. We'll just have to wait and see. I wouldn't be surprised if we find ourselves on Tuesday, and it wouldn't be a problem at all if we were.
And again, your question on kind of the logic behind this, if we can't get to root cause, and by root cause, that's when we kind of really understand what contributed to the failure or contributed to the performance that we didn't expect. And that's what we try to get to. But in some cases, many times, we can't get all the way to root cause. You know, we can't really conclusively say what actually caused the problem or caused the off-nominal behavior. So then the question is, do we have enough understanding that we know that this is the most probable reason that could have caused what we saw? And then can we do any testing that says, okay, that's not on this next article we're going to go fly? And you see it happen a lot in the expendable launch vehicle area where you don't get the hardware back. We're very lucky in the shuttle world that a lot of time we get the hardware back, then you can do all the forensics, you can tear all the hardware apart, and you can conclusively see that, yes, this resistor failed or this component didn't work right. In the more cases where you don't get that hardware back, then you have to take a look at the evidence, like the tank. We could see the green Corpon paint on the inner tank aluminum structure. So that implied to us that there was potentially an adhesive failure where the foam didn't stick to the tank. So then all these tests that Mike just described to you are driving at, does this next tank have good adhesion between the foam and the painting on the tank? And that's what these tests are trying to prove. So that'll be one piece of the flight rationale or flight logic. Then the other piece is we'll have to go look at, what if we guessed wrong? You know, what if this foam comes off? What damage can it do to the orbiter? And are those conditions acceptable? So we'll put all that together. The teams will discuss it back and forth. They'll talk about it. We'll see, did we miss anything? We'll throw out other theories for what could occur, and then we'll be ready to come into the first shuttle program flight readiness review and then our flight readiness review, and then we'll look at all that and decide if we think we have good enough logic to go ahead and commit this vehicle to flight.
Okay. What, Todd?
Todd Halverson of Florida Today for the JAXA representative, and then I have a follow for either probably Mike or Gerst. For the JAXA representative, could you explain to me your launch season, the period of time available to you to launch the HTV as it relates to restrictions with your fishing industry in Japan?
Okay. We have some constraint from such a fishing area, but we can launch during 180 days at least. So we can launch a HTV anytime, almost any time in the year. So we are now planning HTV launch will be scheduled to every one flight per year. Okay? So from this year, we will launch 7 flights from Tanegashima every year. So we don't have such a constraint so much.
Is there any way that I understood that in the September time frame, you had only a certain number of days in which you could launch the HTV, and if so, what is that time frame?
Oh, yes.
And
Okay.
and for the NASA guys, how might that or might not affect the STS-128 launch? Is there a certain time you need to launch that mission in order to get up and finish your work at space station and get back and clear the way for the HTV? Thanks.
I see. First flight might be September 11th. And if we are not ready, we must extend until the end of the month. And we can adjust any day according with NASA people to be launched. So first day was
Yeah. And kind of from, Mike can help me too, from an overall standpoint, I think our general logic is that since this is the first flight of HTV, we would like to give them as much of the launch window as we can provide to them. So we would like to be prepared that we are done with our operations on station such that they can support their launch on the 10th or the 10th U.S. time, 11th of September Japanese time.
Japanese time.
Yeah, and so we're going to try to get our missions structured in front of that. And there'll be a constraint from undock of the shuttle to the docking of HTV. And the teams are still trying to refine exactly what that constraint is. They've been working through a number of scenarios. It depends how much work we can get done before, how much we can get done after, et cetera. So there's lots of subtleties that the teams are working through. That'll be part of the discussion as we go into the flight readiness review process to understand what those real constraints are. But there will be a period of time when we will yield to HTV and let HTV go fly. I think the other thing that's important is there's still a lot of work to do on station. Next week we begin a whole series of software uploads that have to occur on station. All those software needs to get loaded on station and get checked out with a series of tests with JAXA to make sure we're ready for the HTV. Then Benoit can also add there's also ARM activities that need to occur. We need to have the ARM in a software for the ARM. We have some arm needs to be in a certain position for HTV. It has two latching end effectors. They're not exactly symmetric, so there's a certain configuration that the arm has to be in. So we've got all that laid out in a timeline, and it all kind of fits. So as soon as Mike and the guys figure out where the shuttle sits, then we'll figure out what overall that relationship is. But roughly the shuttle would be sometime probably the end of August, as Mike said, and then at that point we probably stand down and let HTV go fly. And Mike or Benoit, you can add anything.
Okay, we'll go to the front row, and then we'll come around to this other side of the room.
Hi, Dan Hernandez with the Tokyo Shimbun. Another question for Tachikawa-san. What do you think about NASA's plan to retire the shuttle next year? And what are your thoughts on the future of the ISS? Do you think it should be deorbited?
So, for so long years, we discussed how to complete the ISS, International Space Station, so that we need, say, 28 flights. We discussed 3 years ago or 4 years ago, I forget. Anyway, so at that time already, Space Shuttle will be retired around 2010. So we understand such a situation, so we are planning under such a constraint. So we are ready to accept such an idea, just retirement of a space shuttle.
Sure, right across that.
Hajime Tobe with the Kyodo News, a Japanese newswire. This question is for Mr. Gastenmeier. There's a report that your ISS managers said it's a follow-up question for him, from him. You are planning to deorbit the International Space Station in 2016. So is that the current plan? Still now?
Yeah, the current legislation we have says that we will not preclude space station operations beyond 2015 or 2016. And the confusion comes in, what does not preclude mean? So we don't have it officially in our budget to continue operations, but the Augustine Commission that's meeting right now, they're going to make a recommendation on what we do with space station, but we've done nothing that says we're going to end space station. And I think our challenge is Dr. Tachikawa said at the beginning, is how do we as a partnership figure out how to most effectively utilize the space station? We have built a tremendous research capability on orbit, and now our challenge is over the next several years is to effectively utilize that capability. The new exposed pallet that just came up and was delivered by Japan is a phenomenal facility. It has 3 instruments out there that were delivered on this flight. HTV will carry up 2 more instruments in September. So now is our time to really start utilizing space station, and then I think it becomes obvious about what the fate of space station is. If we can use it and it can realize the research and utilization ideas that we have in place and the plans we have in place, then there'll be no question about us continuing to fly space station.
Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left, so why don't we go to this side of the room and then come back around if we could.
Andy Batag with Fuji Television for Mr. Gerstenmaier and Mr. Moses. What is your general assessment of how Mr. Wakata did on the long-term mission? And based on his performance, would you be comfortable having other Japanese astronauts do long-term missions? And what do you think your relationship with JAXA is at this point?
I would say from my perspective, I exchanged email with the crew on orbit, and I told them that we were delaying this flight a little bit because of weather and other things that were occurring to us. And the response I got back overwhelmingly from the crew on orbit was that how much Koichi had become part of the crew. And they really didn't want to see Koichi leave. He has really bonded and became part of the crew and was a full-up functioning crew member. So as, again, Dr. Tashikawa said, he performed unbelievably great on orbit. He did a great job. He did everything we asked him to do. He went above and beyond. So I can't say enough about how wonderful that relationship was with him. I would also say that our relationship with JAXA is very strong. We work very good internationally with the partnership. Their new launch vehicle that they're getting ready to fly, the HTV that's coming up here in September, that's a tremendous accomplishment for them to get a new launch rocket as well as the HTV ready to go fly in a time frame is a tremendous benefit to the partnership. And as the shuttle retires, some of that burden that the shuttle gives because we can't carry as much cargo will fall to ATV and to HTV. So again, I think our relationship with JAXA is just outstanding, as well as with all our partners.
Okay, well, we back in the. Okay.
One question and a follow, if I may, please. James Dean from Florida Today for Mr. Gerstenmaier. From the comments you just made, it sounded like you're still working out all the partners are working out how to best utilize the station. And just from the look of it, as Endeavour departed this time, it certainly looks very close to complete. Understanding you have 7 missions left, how long is it going to be between from now to when you'll be able to say that you are fully utilizing the station for science?
I think it's important to note that even during this assembly phase, we've done a tremendous amount of utilization. I had an MCB meeting, a multilateral control board meeting here in Florida last week with my partners, and we went over all the investigations and all the papers and all the research that's been done on space station to date, and it's a pretty amazing set of accomplishments. So I would say that we've utilized station a lot, but we can utilize it even more, and we've got plans in place to go utilize it. The payloads are scheduled to go fly. The investigations are ready to be done. It's now our challenge to take those, refine those, and improve them. So just as we get better with assembly and we deal with the road bumps and the speed bumps that Mike talked about, we'll have some of those in the utilization world, and we need to figure out how to go be prepared and go get ready to go do that. So I think we're going to just continue what we've done in assembly and then carry that challenge into utilization and a really effectively utilized station. But it's a misnomer to say that we've not done any utilization. You need to really look at the research and the activities that have been done, and it's a large volume of research that's been completed already.
Okay, my other question, unrelated to this mission, was just that it's only a little over a year away from the final scheduled flight if things stay on schedule. When are you planning to announce the crew for that mission? Are you waiting till you actually know if it, in fact, does become the last mission? And would you expect that crew to be sort of an all-star cast, if you will, of astronauts?
Well, I don't know that I can answer that. I will offend some astronauts no matter what I say. I think we're not, there's nothing special about when we're going to make the announcement. I think we're ready, and we've been processing that and doing the planning. So I think at the right time when the crew office and the public affairs folks are ready to announce, I think we'll announce. And I think it's fairly close to getting ready to be announced. So there's nothing special. I don't see it as a big deal one way or the other, and you'll get a chance to see the astronauts that are on that flight, and then you can judge for yourself what you think.
Okay.
Allison Jones, the Canadian Press, for Monsieur Marcotte. I wonder if you could expand a bit on the significance of this mission for the Canadian Space Agency and also what it means for the future of our space program.
Well, for us, as I said earlier, it's a new first. Having 2 astronauts on orbit at the same time for Canada is quite something that we find interesting and impressive. The fact that one of them is doing a long-term space mission is important to us so that our core astronaut can learn, as well as the other astronauts from around the world, what it means to be on orbit for a long period of time, preparing for longer journeys in the future. As far as having Julie there on this particular mission, it was the 15th flight, the first time a Canadian astronaut was coming to the space station or going to the space station a second time. So that was impressive as well. And her role in robotics was pleasant for us as well, to see a Canadian astronaut, behind the controls of Canadarm2 and then the other robotic system on orbit. So it's another step or so in our Canadian astronaut program that we want to continue to evolve with the International Space Station, to continue to do research, and then we'll continue to plan what role Canada will play in space exploration in the future.
We have time for about one more question, so if somebody hasn't asked a question, maybe in the back there.
Thank you. John Ellis, Tokyo Broadcasting System, for Mr. Takeshima. Sorry, Tachikawa. And I just wanted to ask, to follow up on this cultural issue, it is a custom for Japan to have people who are away from Japan to bring a gift. I'm wondering, are there any omiyage that Mr. Wakata has brought from space? And second one, what are the steps forward from now for astronaut Wakata?
I don't know. Mr. Wakata has some souvenir from space. Today, he didn't have enough time to hand out something. But I suppose he will bring back something different from you imagine. Not hardware. I suppose he bring back some new idea or a new impression on the space. And he finally returned to the Earth, so I appreciate very much his mission. And he is still young, so maybe he will have a chance to another space station long stay. If possible, he would like to go to a moon, I suppose. Okay?
All right, that's all the time we have. Our next briefing on NASA TV should be with the astronauts from STS-127's mission. That crew news conference should be about 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time, roughly. But before that, we'll actually, following this news conference, we will replay the Endeavour's landing from about a couple hours ago on NASA television. And in the meantime, if you want more information about the STS-127 mission and its crew, go to www.nasa.gov/shuttle. Thank you.